Guys, welcome once again to Build with Mr. Lee. In today's video, we are going to be looking at functions in PHP, getting things done seamlessly without repeating yourself. So what are functions? A function is a named block of code that performs a specific task. Take note of the word specific task. It enables code reusability, like I've read before. Get things done seamlessly without repeating yourself. So you don't want to repeat yourself. That's where reusability comes in. And it also breaks down complex blocks of code into simpler and understandable blocks. Imagine a function to be a restaurant. So you walk into the restaurant. The first thing they give to you in the restaurant is a list. A menu containing the list of available foods, like the one that is shown on the screen. So guys, here's a list of food. And let's assume you go to the main course and you decide to pick a grilled salmon. So you select your grilled salmon, the waiter brings the food, you eat it, and at the end you give your response if the food was sweet or not. That's the same thing that a function does. So a function has a name. Just like here you have grilled salmon, you have chicken parmesan. You might decide to go with grilled salmon. Now you don't actually know how grilled salmon is prepared. There's a kitchen where it was prepared, you weren't there. That's how your function also have a body where you'd carry out, where the code or the program for carrying out the various tasks is explicitly written. So the code is to perform a particular task, it will be written inside there. So what you just do is to pick the food. Same way you call your function and you eat. The function performs a particular task. You give a response if the food is good or bad. That's how a function can also give a response. So this is a simple analogy of the restaurant analogy of how function works. It's going to be very easy for us to understand the function of a function. So after this, you go to the types of function. There are various types of function. We have the built-in functions, which are functions which PHP already has written inside their program, like in the programming language. They have built-in function. They have count. We are going to be experimenting with a string kind of function here. Then you have user-defined function, where you be the one to define the function and tell the function to do anything. And there's anonymous function. There's anonymous function. Anonymous function doesn't actually have a name. So we are going to see these various types of function. Let's go to how a function is written. So quickly, let's launch our PHP programs to explain further. So you go to XAMPP. In your XAMPP, you look at for htdocs. I have a folder here called net that has my various codes. So let me use VS Code to open this. I open with code. So my VS Code is my code editor, my preferred code editor in this case. So in VS Code, I already have a function. Now, like I said, let's use the restaurant analogy. Now in PHP, there's a keyword for defining, to telling the program that what you're writing is a function. That keyword is called function. So you can see it's highlighted in blue here. And we have the name of the function. You can see the function, there's something called name, followed by a parenthesis, very important, and also there are curly braces. So this is the basic syntax of a function. Your function keyword, your name, parenthesis, and a curly brace that contains the body of your function. So let's go back to how do we name our functions. Back to naming of functions. So consideration for creating a function. The name of your function should be able to describe what your function does. For example, your function to add two numbers should be called something like add. It shouldn't be something like A or AB. You should describe what you want to do. So if you want to make your function to eat food, it should be eat food or something related to eating of food. You should not just go and call function that you want to create for something to eat food to be any random name. And also possibly if your function has a verb, you should also use a verb as beginning to begin the naming the function. Let's say you want to send an email. You want to write a function that will send an email. Send is a verb, so you should just use send email. So let's go back to our code. So if you can see here, Let's say I want a function to echo a name. So like I said, I can call it echo name. So I come here and I put echo. My name is, let's say, Edwin. Let me remove this for now. Now, let me launch this on the browser. So I go to my browser and I type localhost /ned. And I type functions.php. I don't know if it is function or functions. Yeah, it's functions.php. So it's not running because my XAMPP is not on. So I turn on my XAMPP quickly. I start Apache server so that it can actually host my web application locally. So I start Apache server and I run again. So right now, wow, nothing is actually showing. Although, remember I told you that echo is used to like echo things. You shout out things. But right now, nothing is actually showing. So that's because this is just like a list. A function, like I said, is a list. So for you to eat what is inside, or for you to use what is inside this list, for example, your restaurant analogy, for you to eat the food you selected, you have to like call the waiter to bring the food. So I must call my function before I can use my function. So let's call a function. In calling a function in PHP, you just write the name of a function with this with your brackets. So if you call this function, now if I refresh, you can see it's showing. Let me make this stuff in line with this guy. If I refresh, it's showing clearly. So my name is Edwin. It's showing here. Very easy. So that's basically how to write and define a function. Very easy. You've created your first function ever and you've echoed your name in your browser. So for example, if your browser is not working, you can actually do that here on your terminal. And how to bring out terminal in VS Code, go to your VS Code here, you see terminal, so you create new terminal, or you use control backlit to check your terminal. So you can just come here and put PHP Functions.php, and you see here my name is Edwin appears on your terminal. Same with the browser. So you've created your first ever function. Okay. So guys, if I write this function, okay, so you might be asking, functions are very simple. So basically I can actually do this echo my name here is Edwin, and I just print it to the terminal and it's going to show my name is Edwin without even writing a function. So why would I bother myself to use a function when I can actually do things easily just echoing it on the program? So remember from the beginning of this video, I said how to avoid how to get things done seamlessly without repeating yourself. So guys, assuming you have different users, let's say user 1, Edwin, 2 and 3 to 5 with different names, and possibly you wanted to like echo something like, hi Edwin, welcome to Build with Mr. Lee, and you begin to tell them the various mission statement and all that. So you can see how long this particular line of code is. But here you see, even if when I have not actually beautified this, I have to scroll to see the end of the statement. You can actually see that I'm repeating the same statement both here, and here. Remember from the introduction when I was talking about PHP, I said get things done seamlessly without repeating yourself. So one of the major way to write code, even as an advanced programmer, is writing dry code where we do not repeat ourselves. So that's one of the advantage of functions. So let me write a function called hello. So each time, or let me say greet users or something like that. So I want to greet users. So what I want to use to greet for my user is called greet user, and it's a normal function that doesn't have the normal function. So now instead of bringing all these statements here, I can cut this statement from this echo and paste it inside this function. I can cut it and paste it inside this function, and what I'll do inside this function is to echo this stuff you've seen here, and remember to end the line of code with the semicolon. So instead of doing this user hi user 1, then writing the statement, I can actually just come here and say user 1, then I concatenate the string and call greet user. So you can see the long line of code has been reduced to just this one line. One amazing thing about function is reusability. So I've been able to save space and I can reuse. So let's say I want to do for the next user echo hi. So user 2 greet you. I can do this for as much as I want. So you can actually see this is very fast. So let's go to our browser to preview this. And I go to my browser, I refresh this browser. You can see everything is coming out seamlessly with just this little line of code, unlike before that it was very long. So your functions helps you to be able to, one, not to repeat yourself, to also create reusability. So let's look at what else you can actually use a function for. You can actually use a function to take a parameter. So let's assume in our restaurant analogy, you went to a restaurant and you want to buy beverage, like you can see on the screen. And the rule of the restaurant is that before you can actually buy a beverage, you must give them money. Let's say you want to get milkshakes. Oh, I love milkshakes. Very nice. So before you wait, I can actually bring milkshake for you. Remember the functions we had before. Once you just tell the waiter milkshake, the waiter will go and bring milkshake and you take your milkshake. But this time the restaurant wants you to drop money first. So there's a parameter to this milkshake, and that's money. So if I put milkshake, I must drop $4.99. Same thing comes with a function. If I want to greet this user, I must, for me to make my function to remove this echo hi from here, and I just want my function greet users to be what I want to see. So the greet user should be able to do, hi Edwin, welcome to Build with Mr. Lee, instead of putting it directly here. So I want my code to be more drier, like I want to make my code dry more. So I can just come here, inside my greet user, I provide a parameter that before you can actually access this greet user, you must actually provide a parameter called name of user. Now immediately I call my function. You can see even at calling my function, there's a red line under here showing you that there is an error. Now if you hover around the red line, you're going to see that an argument is as expected but found none. For this to actually work, you need the extension called IntelliFont. It's an extension you can download from your extension manager. So now I want to use this name of user inside my block of code. Block of code is like in the restaurant analogy, it's just like your kitchen where you prepare your food. So for people to be satisfied, you need to give money. Yes, I can't actually work without them paying me. So inside here, once I see the money, then I can actually do something with the money, which is to buy ingredients for me to cook for me to make milkshakes. So the person has given money. Money is a parameter, or like in this case, the person has given the name of the user. I would use the name of the user to like say hi to the user. So I come here and say echo hi. Remember, it's a string and I'm concatenating it. So hi, I give a space here, dot name of user. So I give this and I give a space. Immediately, once the person once you call your function and you provide a name here, it's going to show hi. Any name you provide, then welcome to Build with Mr. Lee. So let's go with the first name which you have there, Edwin. So if I call Edwin and I echo it on my terminal, refresh, you can see here showing hi Edwin. So let's say John, and I call John, changes to John immediately. One of the sweetest things with this stuff is that you can actually call a parameter here, and let's say here you don't want to write the name like a string. You have a parameter on top. You want to call a parameter. You can see that you can just call Edwin username here, and I refresh. You can see it changes to hi Edwin. So that's one other thing with the function. The function can take a parameter. Okay guys, one other thing about functions is that it can return a value. So let's go back to our restaurant analogy. For example, you come to beverage and you bought milkshakes. And after buying milkshake, you provided the money like $10. You're expecting the waiter to return the change. Of course, you can be a good person and tell the waiter to keep the change. But in this case, you're expecting the waiter to return something for you with your milkshake, which is the change. Same thing goes to a function. A function can actually return a value. So let's say I have a function called addition, and I want to sum two numbers, to sum a plus b. So we have sum a plus b, and I want to return the sum of a and b. So I want to return the sum of a and b. So if I come back and I use the terminal to print this, you can actually see that nothing is actually coming out. So unlike what we do before, where we will echo our like if we want to echo now, we just echo this sum and a value will come out. In this case, if the function is returning a value, you can actually store that value in another variable. Let me say result. I can call this result of sum. So, and I could put it into addition. Let me say I'm adding two values, 5 and 10. So the result now should be actually be 15. So if I echo exactly the sum of 5 and 10 is this result, I should actually have 15. So you can see actually here what is showing here is 15. Let me do that on my browser. So the result of what is showing here is what? 15. Let me do that on my browser, please. Refresh. So the sum of 10 and 5 is 15, as you can see on the browser. So that's how you can actually use a function to return a value. Okay, for the function, another thing we can actually know about the function is our anonymous function. So anonymous function, as the name implies, is a function that does not actually have a name. Let's also say we want to use this function called addition. So you can actually create a variable called addition and you store it inside the function. That variable takes a and b and it returns a and you return the sum of a and b. You can actually see that this function, what differentiates it from this function here is that the name that is supposed to be here is not here, or rather we are using a variable to store it as a function. This is what we refer to as an anonymous function. And if I want to actually use this function, I can actually use it the same way I use the function here, where I can actually say result of sum is equal to addition of 5 and 10 and I echo. Let me comment this out to show you how that's going to actually print the same result. So let's go to our browser and let's refresh. So you can actually see the sum of 5 and 10 using an anonymous function is 15. So anonymous function is a function without a name. Then secondly, we have something called arrow function. Let's also say we want to add. Now an arrow function can be used when what you want to do is a single line. You cannot actually use an arrow function to write the body of a function that is multi-line. For example, in this function we wrote here, just a simple return a and b, a plus b. We can actually use an arrow function because it's very simple. But if we wanted to do something more complex, you can't actually use an function. So an arrow function is written just like your anonymous function. You have a variable, but the difference is that the function is written as fn. So you put your parameters that you want to use. Then you can actually see here that what is used is an arrow. Instead of using a curly brace, an arrow was used. And for arrow function, there's nothing like return. The moment I put return, it's going to throw an error. So an arrow function doesn't have a return, but this value is actually like you're returning something. And take note that an arrow function can only work if it is a single line. So something like as simple as a plus b. But if you wanted to do something like several things like multiplication, addition inside one function, you can't actually use arrow functions. So let's test this and let's see how it works. So we have addition. So the same result of sum also would be this, and you echo result of sum. So let's comment this one at the top. Let's see how the arrow function works. So this is functional, and let's go to our browser and let's refresh. You can see the sum of 5 and 10 and arrow function is 15. So that's it for okay guys, before I conclude, we'll look at built-in functions. Remember from our introduction, I talked about user-defined functions. I talked about anonymous function. I didn't even talk about arrow functions, but I've explained arrow functions. I talked about built-in functions. Now let's look at one of the examples for built-in functions. Let's say we have a string called name, which is Flavio. Flavio is a string. Now I want to use a built-in function called str_replace. Okay, so if you hover on str_replace, you're going to see the parameters of the function. You see the search, you see replace and subject. Now the search is more like in this parameter here, what do you want to replace? Let's say I want to replace this AVIO with OWER, that's flower. So it means what it's searching for is AVIO. So I provide a search parameter AVIO. And what do I want to replace AVIO with? I want to replace it with OWER. And what is the subject? That subject is name. So now if I echo my name, if I echo name again, if I echo name, this name will no longer show me Flavio, rather it will show me flower. So let's check it and see. Browser, let's reload. The name is Flavio. Let's go back and see str_replace. Okay, that's because we didn't store this name variable here. So if we store the name variable as str_replace AVIO and we do this and we go to the browser and refresh, we're going to see the name now is flower. So this str_replace is actually a predefined function. That is a built-in function. So str_replace. There's also one other one called str_to_upper. So let's say I want to change the name to uppercase, and I print the name. You can see that the name becomes an uppercase of Flavio. Same thing for, there are several built-in functions we can use. To get the length of a string also, you can say length is equal to streln. So you can say the length of name is print length here, and if you refresh, going to see that the number of strings here is 6, which is what we have as Flavio. So that's for built-in functions, and that's it for functions, guys. Thank you very much for watching the video. Do well to like and subscribe to my channel.